The first thing I saw was her legs wrapped around him. Not just a hug, not just a kiss. Olivia, my wife, practically climbing on another man like she couldn't get enough of him. His hands gripping her, pulling her close, mouths crashing together like they'd been starving for each other. I couldn't breathe. The private investigator's video played in my hands, the screen lighting up my car's dark interior. My stomach churned, a slow-burning rage clawing its way up my throat. This wasn't just some stupid mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was passion. This was betrayal. I skipped ahead in the footage. More scenes. More evidence. Hotel rooms. Late-night car meetups. Her wearing that red dress, the one she told me she bought for our anniversary, but I'd never even seen her in it. And then came the worst part. The part that made my vision go black. Her laughing. She lay on the bed with him, her head on his chest, giggling like a teenager in love. Like I had never made her laugh in all our years together. Like she had already replaced me. I gripped my phone so hard it nearly cracked. This wasn't just cheating. This was war. And she had no idea that her perfect little secret? It was about to explode. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember parking or walking through the front door. My hands were still shaking, my pulse a dull roar in my ears. The video played over and over in my mind, each frame a new knife to the gut. Olivia was in the kitchen, casually sipping wine like she wasn't the worst person on earth. "Hey, babe," she said without looking up, scrolling through her phone. "How was your day?" I stared at her. How was my day? My day ended with a PI sending me a highlight reel of her throwing herself at another man. But I wasn't stupid. Not yet. I forced my voice to stay calm. "Fine. You." She stretched like a cat, rolling her neck. Exhausting. Work was brutal. Work. Brutal. I almost laughed. She had no idea I knew. I sat down at the kitchen table, fingers drumming against the wood. "You know," I said, watching her closely, "Jake told me something interesting today." That got her attention. She stiffened, just for a second, before forcing a smile. "Yeah? What about?" "I heard a rumor. About you." Her eyes narrowed. There it was. That flicker of panic before she smothered it under a mask of casual indifference. "Oh," she said, setting her glass down. "What kind of rumor?" I tilted my head. "That you've been spending time with someone else." She snorted. "Are you serious? You're actually listening to office gossip now?" I pulled out my phone, swiped to the video, turned up the volume, and hit play. The moans, the whispers, the unmistakable sound of skin against skin. Her face drained of color. For the first time in our entire marriage, Olivia had nothing to say. I watched her, waiting for some ridiculous excuse, some desperate lie. But she just stared at the screen, frozen. Then finally she laughed. Laughed. Like this was some kind of joke. "Oh my God," she said, shaking her head. "You actually hired a private investigator? Do you have any idea how pathetic that is?" Something inside me snapped. Pathetic? I slammed my phone onto the table. "You're calling me pathetic? You're the one screwing another man behind my back. You lied to me, Olivia. You made me think I was crazy. And now you're laughing." She crossed her arms, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please. Don't act like you're some perfect husband. You barely pay attention to me anymore. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have needed someone else." My vision blurred with rage. "Needed?" I repeated. "So, what? This wasn't a mistake? You actually think you're justified?" She shrugged. "I don't know what you want me to say. I had fun. He made me feel alive. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." Every word was another stab to the heart. But I wasn't going to let her win. I leaned in, voice low. "Dangerous. Who is he?" She smirked. "Wouldn't you like to know?" I grabbed the wine glass from her hand and hurled it across the kitchen. It shattered against the wall, deep red dripping down like blood. Her smirk vanished. "Who is he?" For the first time, she looked nervous. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," I growled. "Because I'm going to ruin his life just like he helped ruin mine." She licked her lips, debating whether to keep up the act. Then, with a sigh, she leaned against the counter. "Fine. His name is Ethan Parker. He works at my office. And before you get any ideas, you can't do anything to him. He's got connections. People who will make sure you regret it." A slow, bitter smile spread across my face. "Oh, Olivia," I said. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Olivia's smirk was gone. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes, fear. She thought she had the upper hand, that I'd just take this like some weak, pathetic loser. She had no idea. I stood up, towering over her. So, Ethan Parker? Huh? I let his name roll off my tongue like a death sentence. Tell me, Olivia, does his wife know? Her head snapped up. What? Oh, you didn't think I'd do my homework? I leaned against the counter, watching her squirm. You think I wouldn't check everything once I found out my wife was screwing around like some desperate? I stopped myself, exhaling through my nose. I know all about him. And guess what? He's married. Got 2 kids, too. Cute family. But his wife has no idea her perfect husband is running around like a stray dog. She swallowed. Now she was nervous. You wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and wiggled it in front of her. Oh, but I would. In fact, I already did. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I tapped the screen. Sent her a message 10 minutes ago. With proof. A gasp escaped her lips. No, you're lying. I turned the screen so she could see the chat. Ethan's wife, Rachel Parker, had already read my message. And then, as if the universe wanted to rub salt in the wound, my phone buzzed. Rachel Parker, who are you? Is this real? Olivia's face went pale. I grinned. Oh, honey, it's just getting started. She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back, laughing. What's wrong, Olivia? You were laughing a minute ago. Thought this was all so funny. She gritted her teeth. You're ruining people's lives. I tilted my head. You mean like how you ruined mine? She ran a hand through her hair, pacing. Listen, please. If Ethan's wife finds out, it's going to be bad. For both of us. I raised an eyebrow. Both of us. She bit her lip. Ethan, he's my boss. I froze. Then, slowly, a smirk spread across my face. Oh, this was better than I could have imagined. I took a step toward her, watching her squirm. So let me get this straight. You weren't just cheating. You were screwing your married boss? Wow, Olivia. You really outdid yourself this time. She pressed her hands together. Listen to me. If this gets out, I'll lose my job. I feigned shock. Oh no, Olivia. You might actually face the consequences of your own actions? How tragic. Her eyes flashed with fury. You don't understand. If he goes down, he's taking me with him. And you don't want that. I crossed my arms. Why not? She hesitated, then smiled. Not a nervous smile. A dangerous one. Because if I go down, she whispered, I'll make sure I take you with me. For a second, I just stared at her. Then, a laugh bubbled up in my throat. She really thought she had leverage. I shook my head. Olivia, you've already lost. The only thing left is how hard you want this to crash. She exhaled sharply, running her hands down her face. Okay, what do you want? I smiled. Oh, don't worry. I'm not done yet. But first, I think Ethan deserves a little surprise, don't you? Her eyes widened. No. But I was already dialing. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a deep voice answered. Yeah. I put it on speaker. Hey, Ethan. It's me, Olivia's husband. Silence. Then, click. He hung up. I grinned at Olivia. Looks like someone's in panic mode. She clenched her fists. You're being cruel. I shrugged. Cruel? No, Olivia. Cruel is what you did to me. This is justice. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed again. Rachel Parker, call me. Now. I held the screen up for Olivia to see. She closed her eyes. You bastard. I smirked. Oh, sweetheart. You have no idea what's coming next. I stared at the message from Rachel Parker, my lips curling into a smirk. Ethan's wife was ready to talk. Olivia stood there, arms crossed, her breathing uneven. She was trying to keep it together, but I could see the cracks forming. You're seriously going to drag her into this, she snapped. I tilted my head. Oh, you mean like how you dragged me into your little affair? Her nostrils flared. This is different. I laughed. You're right. This is worse. Then, without another word, I pressed call. The phone rang once before Rachel answered. Who the hell are you? Straight to the point. I liked her already. I stepped into the living room, away from Olivia's piercing glare. I'm the guy whose wife has been sleeping with your husband. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the PI, the footage, the texts, the lies. I kept my voice even, letting the facts do the damage. As I spoke, I heard her breathing shift, anger replacing shock, fury swallowing disbelief. When I finished, she didn't respond right away. Then, in a voice so cold it could freeze fire, she said, Send me the proof. I grinned. With pleasure. A few taps later, the videos, texts, and time-stamped photos were on their way. I could practically hear the moment she saw them, her sharp inhale, the subtle tremor in her breath. Then, a whisper. He's dead. I chuckled. That makes two of us. Click. The line went dead. I turned back to Olivia, who was gripping the edge of the kitchen counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Rachel's on the warpath, I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. How do you think Ethan's going to handle that? She exhaled sharply. You're enjoying this. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Enjoying? No. But I'm sure as hell not done. She shook her head. You don't get it. If Ethan's wife goes nuclear, he's going to blame me. And if he blames me... Her phone rang. She flinched. We both looked at the screen. Ethan Parker. For a second, she didn't move. Then, with shaking fingers, she picked up. Hello. I watched her face closely. Watched as her expression morphed from panic to outright terror. She tried to speak. Ethan, I... Click. He hung up. She exhaled sharply, hands trembling. He screwed. I raised an eyebrow. And... She swallowed hard. And if he goes down, he's taking me with him. I smirked. Told you this wasn't over. Her hands balled into fists. I hate you. I shrugged. Joined the club. Then, as if the universe had a sense of humor, her phone buzzed again. A message from HR. Her face drained of color. I leaned in. What's wrong, Olivia? She turned the screen toward me. HR department. Olivia, we need to speak with you first thing tomorrow morning. It's urgent. I grinned. Oh. She shoved her phone into her pocket and grabbed my wrist, eyes wild. Listen to me. If I get fired, you're coming down with me. I stared at her hand on my wrist, then slowly pried her fingers off. You already said that. She took a deep breath, eyes darting around like she was desperate for a way out. Okay. Let's talk. I folded my arms. Oh, now you want to talk? She swallowed her pride. We can make a deal. I raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. I'll move out. I'll leave quietly. No drama. No dragging this into court. We settle everything privately. No lawyers, no mess. I scoffed. And what do I get in return? She hesitated. You stop this. You don't go after Ethan at work. You don't drag this into HR. I pretended to think about it. Let me get this straight. You cheat on me. Lie to me. Laugh in my face when I confront you. And now, you want a deal? She nodded quickly. Yes. A clean break. I smiled. No. Her face twisted in frustration. Why not? What more do you want? I took a step closer, my voice low and sharp. I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to watch your life crumble the way you shattered mine. Her breath hitched. You're a monster. I tilted my head. And whose fault is that? Then, without another word, I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. Tomorrow, I was going to HR. And I was bringing hell with me. The next morning, I woke up early. Not because I was anxious, I was excited. Today was the day I set everything in motion. Olivia barely slept. I heard her tossing and turning in the guest room, pacing, probably crafting a dozen desperate excuses to feed HR. Too late. The moment Ethan hung up on her last night, I knew he was already working on saving his own ass. And men like Ethan? They don't go down alone. I dressed sharp, crisp shirt, tailored blazer. If I was going to deliver the final blow, I was going to look damn good doing it. As I reached for my keys, Olivia stormed into the hallway, still in her pajamas. Don't do this. I didn't even slow down. Watch me. She grabbed my arm. You're being petty. I turned, leveling her with a look. Petty? Olivia, you blew up our marriage. I'm just making sure you feel the explosion. Her eyes flashed with desperation. I can fix this. I laughed. You? Fix something? That's rich. Then I stepped out the door and left her standing there, exactly where she belonged, alone. The office buzzed with its usual morning chaos, but I wasn't paying attention to the meaningless chatter or the sound of keyboards clacking. I had one focus. HR. I stepped into the department, cool and collected. A woman at the desk looked up and smiled. Can I help you? I have a meeting about a serious workplace violation. Her expression shifted. Oh, name. I told her. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh, right. You're involved in that situation. I smirked. Oh, I'm more than involved. She gestured toward a conference room. They're already expecting you. They? I stepped inside and immediately understood. Ethan Parker was already there. He sat stiffly in a chair, arms crossed, jaw tight. HR representatives flanked him, their expressions unreadable. Olivia wasn't here yet. Good. That meant I got to speak first. I took my seat, clasping my hands in front of me. Morning. One of the HR reps adjusted his glasses. Mr. Carter, thank you for coming in. I assume you understand the nature of this meeting. I nodded. Of course. It's about my wife's completely inappropriate relationship with her boss, also known as the married man sitting across from me. Ethan stiffened. HR glanced between us. Mr. Parker has already given his account. I chuckled. Oh, I bet he has. Ethan finally spoke, his voice strained. I've explained that while there was a lapse in judgment, it was a private matter. I cut him off. Private? Oh, you mean like the way you two were sneaking around in hotel rooms on company time? HR's interest peaked. The other rep folded her hands. Mr. Carter, do you have evidence that company resources were misused? I pulled out my phone. Oh, I have evidence of a lot of things. I slid my phone across the table. Ethan's color drained when he saw the screen. The hotel reservations. The expense reports. The emails. The reps studied the screen, their faces darkening. One of them muttered, "This is serious." Ethan shot me a glare. You really think ruining my career is going to fix your marriage? I smirked. Oh, Ethan, my marriage is already ruined. I just want to watch yours burn too. Before he could respond, the door swung open. Olivia. She rushed in, breathless, hair slightly messy. I'm sorry, I got here as fast as I could. Her eyes flickered to me. If looks could kill. HR didn't waste time. Mrs. Carter, we were just reviewing some concerning information. She swallowed hard and shot Ethan a look that screamed, fix this. But he didn't. He just stared at the table, jaw clenched. That's when she knew. He was cutting her loose. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the show. HR tapped their fingers against the table. Given the nature of this situation, we have to discuss the ramifications for both employees. Ethan snapped his head up. Both. The rep nodded. As of now, we will be conducting a full internal review. Inappropriate use of company funds is a serious breach of ethics. Olivia paled. You're investigating me too? The woman adjusted her glasses. Yes. I watched Olivia's world shatter in real time. She glanced at Ethan, desperate, pleading for him to defend her. But he wasn't even looking at her anymore. He was thinking about himself. Because that's how men like Ethan operate. When the ship sinks, they don't save their passengers. They save themselves. He inhaled sharply, then turned to HR. I take full responsibility. Olivia's mouth fell open. What? Ethan folded his hands. Olivia had no part in the company expenses. I was the one who made the reservations. I'll submit my resignation effective immediately. Resignation. HR nodded. That would be best. Olivia gripped the table. You're quitting. He shot her a look. The kind that said, you don't exist to me anymore. Her breath hitched. I grinned. Checkmate. She had nothing left. No affair. No job security. And no safety net. I stood, buttoning my blazer. Well, that was productive. HR stood as well, offering a professional smile. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mr. Carter. I shook their hands, then turned to Olivia. See you at home, sweetheart. She flinched. And with that, I walked out. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about taking back control. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't go home right away. I wanted her to sit in it, the weight of what she'd done, the consequences catching up to her. I imagined Olivia still standing in that HR office, her mind scrambling, her perfect little world crumbling under her feet. She had no job security anymore. Her boss, her lover, had just sacrificed her like a pawn on a chessboard. I had all the power now. Or so I thought. I was sitting in my car outside a cafe, sipping on the strongest coffee I could get my hands on when my phone buzzed. Olivia. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Desperate. By the fifth call, I picked up, letting silence stretch between us. Her voice was uneven, shaking. We need to talk. I smirked. Now you want to talk? I'm serious, Nathan, she snapped, her usual arrogance still hanging on by a thread. You need to come home. Now. I exhaled through my nose, unimpressed. What, Olivia? You need help packing your things. She hesitated. Then, it's about the baby. My grip on the coffee cup tightened. Baby. A slow, burning rage crept up my spine. She wasn't actually about to pull this card. But I played along. I'll be there in 10. When I walked through the front door, Olivia was pacing in the living room, arms crossed, her entire body tense. She looked at me like she expected something sympathy, concern, maybe even guilt. She was going to get none of it. I shut the door behind me. Go on, then. Lie to me. Her jaw clenched. I'm pregnant. The words hung between us, thick and suffocating. I didn't react. I just stared at her. Because I knew. She fidgeted under my gaze. You don't believe me? Oh, I believe you. I tilted my head. What I don't believe is that it's mine. A flicker of panic flashed across her face before she masked it with a scoff. You're insane. I chuckled, slow and cruel. Am I? Because I did the math, Olivia. You barely touched me in the last few months. But Ethan? I bet you had no problem keeping up with him. She folded her arms tighter around herself. You're being paranoid. I took a slow step closer. So, prove me wrong. Her breath hitched. What? I pulled a small box from my pocket and tossed it onto the coffee table. A DNA test kit. Her entire body stiffened. I smirked. Come on, Liv. If I'm crazy, then this should be easy. Silence. Thick. Uncomfortable. Then she did the one thing I knew she would. She lied. This is disgusting, she hissed. You don't trust me? I laughed. Trust? You lost that luxury the second you spread your legs for another man. Her face twisted in rage. You want me to prove it? Fine. She snatched the box off the table, ripping it open. She swabbed her mouth aggressively, shoving the test kit into my hands. I hope this haunts you, she spat. When it comes back proving you wrong, I hope it eats you alive. I stared at her, unfazed. We'll see. 2 weeks later, I got the email. I already knew the answer, but when I read the words, probability of paternity, 0%, I still felt something in me snap. I was nothing to this child. Ethan was. And Olivia. Olivia had the audacity to act shocked. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch, nervously tapping her fingers against her knee. She saw the look on my face, and for the first time in this entire mess, she actually looked scared. I threw my phone onto the coffee table, the email still open. Her lips parted. Don't, I said, my voice cold, empty. Don't even try. She swallowed hard. It could be wrong. Shut up. She flinched. I leaned over, leveling her with a look that made her shrink into the couch. All this time, I was trying to figure out how I lost you. Trying to find where I went wrong. I shook my head. But I never lost you, Olivia. Because I never had you to begin with. Tears welled in her eyes. Nathan, please. Please. I scoffed. You don't get to beg. You don't get to ask me for anything. You chose this. She wiped at her eyes. I didn't mean. You did. My voice was sharp, cutting. You meant every single choice. Silence stretched between us. Then, finally, she whispered, what happens now? I exhaled slowly. You pack your things. She blinked rapidly, as if she wasn't expecting me to actually go through with it. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem. She stared at me, waiting for some flicker of sympathy. She found none. Leave, I said, voice firm. Before I make this even worse for you. And for the first time in this entire mess, Olivia finally listened. She grabbed a suitcase, stuffing clothes inside with shaking hands. She kept glancing at me, like she was hoping I'd stop her. That I'd change my mind. But I never did. She left that night. And the second the door shut behind her, a weight lifted off my chest. I poured myself a drink, staring at the empty living room. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The silence in the house was deafening. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for another lie, another excuse, another betrayal hidden under a fake smile. Olivia was gone. I should have felt relief. But there was still unfinished business. Ethan, that coward thought he got off easy? Thought he could ruin my marriage, humiliate me in front of my coworkers, and then go back to playing boss like nothing happened? Not a chance. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted ruin. So I did the one thing Olivia never saw coming. I sent the DNA results to HR. If the company didn't have a reason to fire him before, they sure as hell did now. A senior executive impregnating his subordinate? That wasn't just an ethics violation, it was career suicide. The email spread like wildfire. By noon, the entire office was buzzing. People were whispering in the hallways, staring at Ethan through the glass walls of his office. His face was pale, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. Then his door slammed shut. 2 hours later, he was gone. Fired on the spot. I watched as security escorted him out, his face burning with humiliation. I should have been satisfied. But I wasn't. Not yet. That night, I was sitting on the couch, sipping whiskey, when my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I took my time answering, letting the suspense eat at her. When I finally opened the door, Olivia stood there, soaked from the rain, mascara smudged under her eyes. She clutched a duffel bag, her lower lip trembling. "Nathan, please." I leaned against the door frame, unmoved. "You're not supposed to be here." She swallowed. "I have nowhere to go." I raised an eyebrow. "What? Ethan didn't take you in?" Her face twisted in pain. He won't answer my calls." I laughed, low and cruel. "So now I'm plan B?" She reached for me, but I stepped back. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I scoffed. "No, Olivia. You made a choice." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I lost everything." I stared at her for a long moment, letting the weight of her words settle between us. Then, finally, I said, "Good." And I shut the door in her face. I thought that was the end of it. But Olivia? She wasn't done causing damage. 2 days later, I got a call from a mutual friend. "Bro, have you seen what Olivia posted?" I frowned, opening social media. And there it was, a long, pathetic post about how I had abandoned her during the hardest time of her life. About how I was cold, heartless, and vindictive for kicking out a pregnant woman. The comments were a mix of sympathy and outrage. She was painting herself as the victim. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because at this point, it was just pathetic. She thought she could manipulate strangers the same way she manipulated me. Big mistake. I didn't engage in the comments. Didn't fight back with words. Instead, I let the truth do the work for me. Screenshots of the DNA test? Posted. Security footage of her sneaking into Ethan's office late at night? Uploaded. Text messages of her telling me I was paranoid while she was literally cheating? Shared. The internet did the rest. The tide turned fast. People who had been defending her suddenly went silent. Others started calling her out, exposing her lies. Some even dug up old dirt, past exes she'd cheated on, old scams she pulled. She lost everything in real time. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt free. The morning after Olivia's social media stunt, I woke up to an inbox flooded with messages. Some were from friends, some from coworkers, and a handful from complete strangers who had seen the drama unfold online. Olivia's attempt to paint herself as the victim had backfired spectacularly. The internet wasn't as gullible as she thought. People saw through her lies the moment the receipts hit the timeline. Her name was now tied to a scandal that wouldn't be forgotten anytime soon. But I wasn't interested in watching the wreckage anymore. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt peaceful. No more lies. No more paranoia. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Olivia and Ethan were gone, and I was still standing. Now, it was time to move forward. The house felt different without her. It wasn't just the lack of her presence, it was the energy. The weight that had pressed down on me for so long was gone. The silence wasn't suffocating anymore. It was liberating. I spent the next few days getting rid of everything that reminded me of her. Her clothes, her perfume bottles, even the damn coffee mug she always left on the counter. Every trace of her had to go. Then, I made bigger moves. Sold the house. Got a new apartment in the city, closer to work but far enough away from the memories. Changed my number. Blocked her on every platform imaginable. I was done living in the shadow of my past. A few weeks later, I was at a cafe, sipping coffee, when I overheard 2 women at the next table whispering about Ethan. Apparently, after getting fired, he had tried to salvage what was left of his career. He reached out to a few contacts, hoping to land a job somewhere else. But word spread fast about what he had done. No company wanted the liability of a scandal-ridden executive who had knocked up his subordinate and then gotten exposed for it online. Last I heard, he had moved out of the city. Maybe he was trying to start over somewhere else, or maybe he was just running from the humiliation. Either way, he wasn't my problem anymore. Olivia? She had disappeared from social media entirely. No updates, no posts, no pictures. The woman who once thrived on attention had been forced into silence. Fitting. If there was one thing I took from all of this, it was the power of trust and how easily it could be destroyed. I had spent years ignoring the red flags, convincing myself that I was just overthinking, that Olivia couldn't possibly be the person my gut kept warning me she was. I wouldn't make that mistake again. Some betrayals leave scars, but they also leave wisdom. I learned to trust actions, not words. I learned that the person who lies with a smile is more dangerous than the one who stabs you in the back. And most importantly, I learned that revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about taking back control. Olivia and Ethan thought they had control over me. They thought they could lie, cheat, and manipulate without consequences. They were wrong. Months passed. Life settled into something new, something better. I traveled, focused on work, rebuilt friendships I had neglected while I was drowning in a toxic marriage. I even started dating again slowly, carefully. Not because I was looking for someone to replace Olivia, but because I finally felt ready to open that door again. And this time, I knew exactly what to look for. No more second-guessing my instincts. No more ignoring the signs. I wasn't the same man who had stood in that hotel room, staring at a screen that shattered his world. That man was gone. And the new one? Stronger, smarter, unbreakable.